Hi guys, it's Tamara. I am back with another video today. It is Monday and we're going to be focusing on continuing our conversation about the neurobiological and neuroscientific aspects of trauma. Thank you so much for being here with me today. For those of you who are already subscribed, thank you so much for your participation on the channel, your questions, your experiences, and even your comments. Thank you so much. That really does give me something to work with in terms of knowing that I'm helping you reach your goals, knowing that I'm giving you information that you need to hear, and knowing that I'm doing a good job at doing both of those things. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. For those of you who are not subscribed, I encourage you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you can stick around with us as we continue to learn and grow on this channel and talk a lot about mental health. For the past 3.5 weeks now, no, that's wrong. For the past, I want to say almost week and a half, we've been talking a lot about trauma, and we've been talking about quite a few things. We've talked about suicide. We've talked about the dangers of medicating trauma. We've talked about medication and side effects, and we've also talked about traumatic bonding. We've talked about relationships. So we're going to continue to talk about this stuff, guys. And so I want to continue our discussion and end our discussion today of post-traumatic stress disorder and the brain. So I'm going to define a few things for you. All right. So the benefits for you today in this video is that you're going to learn a little bit about the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. You're also going to learn a little bit about specific parts of the brain that are affected in trauma. And then I also want to pull in some treatment approaches that we use to help you heal from a traumatic experience. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump in, go ahead and get started. And I encourage your comments and your questions for this video as well. So I'm going to try to keep it under 19, 18 minutes. But it's pretty meaty, so hang in there with me. All right, so let's just go ahead and start with our autonomic nervous system and our central nervous system. All right, so our central nervous system comprises two important parts, okay, the brain and the spinal cord. And I'm going to put that over here for you so that you can kind of see what it is. All right, so our central nervous system is comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. They are automatic, two pieces of our human body that's automatic, autonomic, and it has a lot to do with the autonomic processes that we experience. Breathing, swallowing, digestion, right? All of those things are automatically running and moving in our body, right? So that's what the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system does. It controls those things. Now, let me just give you an example of what happens when you cut off the brainstem. If you think back to the most painful time in our history, which was slavery times, there was a reason why slave owners would hang their slaves or hang people of color. Because if you cut the brain off from the spinal cord, right, or the brain stem, then you cut off all life. And so that's a pretty interesting point there that a lot of people don't realize, that that's one of the reasons why hanging was invented. It takes your life just like that, right? Stress, anxiety, trauma can also feel like something is happening to your central nervous system. It doesn't end your life, but it's almost like whatever's going on in your mind from the trauma, it has you just as close to something ending your life. Almost, I've had clients say to me, I feel like I'm being hung every day. Like my breathing is elevated, my mind is racing, my body is, I have tremors, it's shaking, right? So that's all of our autonomic and central nervous system, things responding to the environment. So the central nervous system is a very powerful part of our body. It can end our life instantly, or it can make our life very difficult, depending on what we're dealing with. All right. So that's the central nervous system. The autonomic nervous system consists of two different parts. All right. And I'm going to post a video up here where I talked a little bit more about that for you, but it consists of two parts. So consider the autonomic nervous system as the umbrella, and there's two different pieces under that umbrella. One is the nervous system, and the other is the parasympathetic nervous system. So you have the autonomic nervous system is the umbrella. Then you have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system that falls under that. All right. The sympathetic nervous system, I usually call this, especially when I work with children, the gas pedal. The gas pedal. It's the gas pedal in our brain. Our heart rate increases, our mind races, we sweat, our digestion stops working, we don't have to go to the bathroom because, our gallbladder stops working, right? All of those things have a lot to do with the gas pedal in our body, all right? The brake system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, everything slows down in the body. And that includes your sweating stops, your heart rate decreases, digestion goes back to its normal function. Your gallbladder may loosen up. The muscle is not going to be constricted. That's why when you see individuals who are anxious, when they're afraid, they tense up. And then, when the scary event is over, you can see them actually melt, right? I've seen really anxious kids hold their bladder, hold their kidneys and their, I can't think of what you call those muscles, but it holds everything, your bladder, your urine, everything. And then when the event is over, that anxiety provoking event, you may see kids urinate on themselves, right? It's because the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brake system, is releasing those muscles, right? You also have your thoughts kind of slow down as well. You're not as hot, you're not fanning anymore, right? You don't have hot flashes. So the parasympathetic nervous system is extraordinarily powerful, and the sympathetic nervous system, these two systems, have a lot of control and influence over how we function. And when we are interacting with an individual who disturbs us or abuses us, or when we're being reminded of a traumatic event or traumatic encounter that we had, our sympathetic nervous system kicks into gear, right? That's our fight or flight system, right? The environment is cueing our sympathetic nervous system, and it's telling us that something disturbing or threatening is in my environment, all right? That's the sympathetic nervous system. So the fight or flight, right? You either run away from the issue or you stay there and fight, and a lot of people run, right? Because it's too much to tolerate all those emotions and all those different changes happening in the body. Once that threatening event is over, and our hyper arousal is down, right? We're not so aroused anymore. We're not having flashbacks. We're not dealing with avoidance. We're not dealing with social withdrawal. Our parasympathetic nervous system is kicking in at that point. It's calming us down and relaxing us. That's also when we start to see less flashbacks as well, when the parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal, kicks into gear. All right. So this is basically how the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system works, right? When you are in a traumatic situation and you have survived that traumatic situation, your body may automatically kick in to fight or flight mode, even when it doesn't need to. Any small trigger or cue or reminder of a traumatic event or a memory can negatively impact you. It can negatively affect you, okay? So, that's basically why you see a lot of individuals with PTSD struggle to control their symptoms, because it's very automatic. It's autonomic. It's our central nervous system in overdrive. And it's going and going. If you can think of somebody who's running and just running and running and running, that's basically how your central nervous system and your autonomic nervous system is reacting to trauma. Now, you've probably seen people after they run like a marathon and they slow down and they're like, oh my God, right? Your body does that. That's your parasympathetic nervous system kicking into gear.